What is the most effective way to build a relationship with 10,000 people?
From doing this for a very long period of time, like half a decade, it's not necessarily...
Meet Darren Lee. Having scaled Voix to multi-six figures a month, we talk about our plans to continue growing the company, what it takes to build trust and credibility online, and the common mindset myths that hold people back from fulfilling their potential in the world of online business. Get stuck in, guys.
It's not necessarily a podcast, it's not necessarily short form, it's not necessarily copy. It's how you convey the message to one person. Because the best part about copywriting, the best part about videos and script writing is that you speak directly to one person. When I speak on stage, there could be 50 people, 100 people there. I'm still speaking to one person at all times. Because one person is a proxy for everybody else. As unique as we think we are, everyone's problems are the exact same thing. So whether it's health, wealth, and relationships, whether it's on the business side, whatever, personal, professional, same thing. For the most part, magnitude of problems is different. So some people have issues going from 0 to 1 with their business. Some guys want to go to 10 million a year with their business. But in theory, it's the same thing, right? And this is why everyone gets caught on with the who. Who am I helping? Why am I helping them? It's like, dude, look at the problem you're solving. And then how do I convey a very crisp, clear message? So that can be through YouTube videos. That can be through your IG story. You can go live on Facebook if you really want to, right? But it's how do we truly connect with someone through the screen? And I think that's what I've tried to always do, is just be very personable. And, sometimes I just completely miss the boat with that. I freeze up on camera and don't come across natural. But I think in essence, the way to answer that and the way to test, are you doing this at a high enough scale, is that when someone you don't know at all messages you on LinkedIn, Instagram, whatever, and say, hey, dude, I found this piece of content from you. I loved it. I felt it was really hit my vibe. And I feel like you were speaking directly to me.
Yeah.
And then then that you can get to that 10,000 mark. My question to you is, why do you want 10,000? What's your thought process or not?
Why would you want 10,000? I think that's a real audience, right? And I think that's a lifetime asset. So my kind of question there was, because 10,000 seems to be that magic number everywhere. It's like 10K a month, 10K followers here, 10K subscribers. So I thought that was good for the title, mainly. But I wanted to kind of pose the question. So you use that barometer of, you're doing something right when someone comes to you and says, hey, that just absolutely clicked. That it's like you were speaking to me. So when people are producing content, what are you optimizing for? Because there's lots of advice online. You could go to some Instagram coach. He's like, well, just post memes, because memes will go the most viral. Make sure you hook. Spend all the time on the hook, because then the hook's what's going to get retention. And then retention, that means more people go and view the video. So there's all of these ideas that are kind of valuable for certain outcomes. However, my question is to really kind of like build those relationships, which we're optimizing for. When you're in the creation stage, from your perspective, what is it that you need to be putting into that content? Do I need to spend 3 hours on a hook, or do I need to spend 3 hours on something else? Like, how do we kind of know how to put our energy, or where to put our energy when crafting content?
You need to do stuff in the real world and get actual experience and then tell those stories. It's very simple, right? Because it doesn't matter if I'm teaching you something, or if I'm showing you something, or if I'm trying to convince you or persuade you or manipulate you. I have to have pedigree, which is just doing something in the world. Now, again, you don't need to be a master. You can go 0 to 1 super simple with this. But you need to have done something to be able to convey that story. And that's why it's not, is it 5 steps to do this? Is it a listicle on Reddit I'm going to post? All of those like modalities and so on are just almost like irrelevant. But you need to have like the pedigree of the messaging, right? Now, you don't need to have sold a company, but I'll give you an example. If you're creating out content on like YouTube, and you're doing it as a business owner, so where are you coming from? Are you a creator? Are you a business owner? They're like the 2 brackets, creator, business owner. If you are a business owner, you are doing it for the purpose, or you should be doing it for the purpose, for your business. Business owner, attaching it to the business. And then you need to have a mechanism to get people to want to come and work with you. So it's telling that story. So if I was putting a video for you, how to grow your business in 2025, I need to have 1, grown a business. 2, I need to specify that dream outcome. But then 3, I need to utilize what I have done in my life. So I would say, I would speak directly to you, and I would do it in like a soft, gentle way, being like, this is how you grow your business from someone who has grown X, Y, and Z over the past 2-3 years. And then I would go deeper into what is that message I'm trying to convey, but also what's the emotion I'm trying to feel, right? Because I can't be up here speaking down at you saying, yeah, haha, brokey, grow your business, because it doesn't get me to like love you. It doesn't get me to love the brand, right? Instead, I need to truly show the emotion. So the emotion is, I know what it's like to have an empty Stripe account. I know what it's like to open up a LinkedIn and no one responds to my DMs. I know what it's like to sit on a Zoom call and a sales call and no one shows up for the sales call. That's why I'm creating this video. That's why this can help you. And that's kind of why you should kind of shut up and listen to me, right? Because like I've actually been there. And then what happens as a result, you can go through the mechanism and the modality and the hero's journey and the, expert secrets putting a framework on something. But what will happen is, as viewer who is actually a prospect comes through the journey for you as a business owner, they will come and speak to you on LinkedIn, Instagram, and say, that was the feeling that I have right now. And then your response is, I've had that feeling. If I'm ever on a call with someone and someone's like, it sucks, I can't grow, I can't build my business, I'm struggling to get leads, struggling to get sales, I'm like, yeah, it sucks because I've been there and it sucked. So at that point, you as the authority say, okay, I know what it feels like. Here's the roadmap. If you're not at that point yet, the roadmap is conveyed through your videos. The roadmap is conveyed through your messaging, through your positioning, how you show up. Because there needs to be a marriage between the experience you have, the pedigree you have, and then just being the actual human, the non-robot, the non-potato, right? To put it very simple. We need to actually convey that you're someone that has like empathy for that scenario. And I feel like that's what a lot of like the real good guys have like nailed, right? And they do it through different lenses. There's different aspects of psychology happening for sure. But at the end of the day, that's why their content has worked. Or what I would describe worked as is actually growing the business if they're a business owner, right? Because there's an inverse relationship to how many views you get versus how many leads you get. I joke saying that on Instagram, I truly believe this, that on Instagram right now, they should remove the like button and change it to a lead button and check how much people actually hit the lead button, right? Because that's how we'll see, does the messaging actually work for a business owner, right? Because it doesn't always convey it in the right way.
It's awesome. The thought that comes to mind there, conviction transcends language. And
100%.
Conviction transcends language. And I think from my perspective, we're obviously working together for, I guess, like 18 months now, kind of longer.
So
long.
Me and Elise were trying to like pinpoint it yesterday. We were like, was it this year? We're like, or was it that year or that year? We're like, oh, it doesn't matter. We don't know.
It's it's been awesome. But I think that's what really stands out. And again, it's not something that you try to do. And then I think Lara said this on one of your podcasts, actually, Lara Costa, who's come to the mastermind in a couple of weeks as well, who's awesome. She said, like, if you're trying to be authentic, you're not being authentic. And I kind of was jumping around that idea and knew it intrinsically and was trying to convey it, but she just hit it succinctly. And I've used that over and over again. So if you're trying to be authentic, you're not being authentic. Because it's like if you try and pick up a piece of trash, the trash remains on the floor. Like you haven't actually picked it up. It's like just pick up the piece of trash, be authentic. And it's like that idea of kind of being authentic is you have to stop kind of being concerned about being authentic. And it's like have the conviction. And I love what you said. It's like actually you've gone and done something. And like there's a great line in the Detaching, which I always bring up on every podcast because I read it all the time. But it's he who stands on tiptoes does not stand steady. He who stands on tiptoes does not stand steady. And for me, that kind of like speaks to this whole idea with like the communication, whether you're doing it on the internet through the medium of a video or whether we're having a conversation like this, if you try and kind of like puff yourself up, it's not that you're lying, but you're standing on tiptoes. Like, look, I'm a little bit taller than I am.
100%.
You're not standing steady. You're going to be easily pushed over. You're going to blow over. And something I got from my girlfriend as well, Julia, like she said on the podcast when I had her on,
podcast funnel,
podcast dating funnel. For anyone, I have a sub course if you want to learn how to do that. It's not efficient, but her whole thing has been just copied. Like she really took Gary Vee's advice to heart when she started, it was document, don't create. You know, she's not like trying to create something necessarily for a certain outcome. She's like, I'm documenting what I'm doing. And she's managed to build a, you know, a life off that over many years. And I've kind of really leaned more into that recently as well. It's kind of, hey, this is what we're doing day to day. This is how we're solving this problem. Maybe it's useful to you, you know, and that's when you can speak with conviction, because you're not trying to sell someone on some, I mean, unique mechanism. I almost think that they're irrelevant nowadays. Like everyone's got their, you do have a unique mechanism in your business. However, if you spent more time trying to give it a cool name, like the magic golden lubed up funnel, whatever, like than actually like validating it and seeing, does this thing work? Your unique mechanism doesn't need this amazing like framework or name. It's like nail your sales and marketing.
Yeah.
Nail your content. It's like
the most basic stuff, you know?
It's the basic stuff that you're doing. And I think that's what has been missing. I think that's what we've kind of like really, the pain point we've kind of hit is like, are you doing the basics? Are you doing it well? Let's just, it's not sexy. We haven't got the magic golden funnel. Like it's the basics, like what's missing. Let's look at that, you know?
And it's funny because like people say that our like approach to things, and we can get into it, is like unique. And I'm like, it's not unique. It's just how to run an actual and efficient business, you know? And just double tap on what you were saying. Like, and firstly, it's been amazing working here for so long, dude, and I really want to appreciate it not, because it's like I say to everyone, it's like where I was at before you came in, I was just chewing glass. Like I was super like overrun, working 20 hours a day. I was super stressed and I wasn't growing. You know, we were doing the agency. I was, you know, I was speaking with you like every day. We were going back and forth. I was taking so many sales calls. They weren't closing. I said my close rate was like 4%, like legit. I'd get clients, I'd lose clients. So like you actually are the answer, genuinely. And I do truly mean that, man. Because like if you think about it, and I'll be fully transparent, I was making like 80K, maybe 100K a month. I'd lose clients, win clients. I was doing everything, you know. And then when I met James Kemp, he was like, just unbundle it. And then I was like, yeah, that's part, like I can do that, but I can't implement that. And that's when you came in, you know. I think the unique edge that you have is being able to get the result for people in the shortest amount of time, with the least amount of complexity, with the least amount of headache, and the least amount of fires. Do you get me? Whereas people think you need more, you know, and even people that we work with think that they need more in the program. Even people like Lara Acosta, who I'll kind of coach and mentor side by side as friends, she's like, I need more lucid charts. I'm like, fuck your lucid charts, just get the result. And I always mention you to her, so I want to say a big thank you, brother.
Yeah, appreciate you, man.
Yeah, cool. But dude, it wouldn't be possible.
Yeah,
like I'm being dead serious.
We're very complementary. I think we have very complementary personalities as well.
But that's why it works, bro.
Yeah,
and that's why it's like So I, you know, you often hear me say like, beware of the ninja in the dark, because he's moving while you're sleeping. Like he's literally in the dark when you're sleeping. And I think that when you get to that point, when you have a business that runs like this, right, where it's like, there are people that I need to push, and then there are people that you pull, and then there's the yin and the yang, and then like that is why this works. Do you get me? And that's why I couldn't do it on my own. That's the big thing, is the fact that I could do it, but again, it's the human development of who you are that will allow you to get to that point. Do you get me?
I love it. I think there's an interesting, this is a side tangent, and we're not,
yeah.
we're not like, no, this now is a side tangent. We're like, we're not astrology bros, like at all. However, there is an interesting thing, right? It is interesting. So me and Darren like have, our birthdays are like complete astrological opposites. So like I'm 8th of September, you're 8th of March. And that's like exactly 6 months apart. But the funny thing is, my girlfriend Julia is born on exactly the same day as you. So it's just interesting. We don't know how much, I don't know how much I buy into all kind of astrology stuff, but it is interesting that like kind of this opposite energy, for me personally, in my own life, the two most important people in my life, who I spend the most time with and interact with the most, are born on exactly the same day at pretty much like the same time. Like that's something, I don't know what that is, but it maybe speaks to whether we buy into that or not, like the kind of yin and the yang of things. And I have to say, like, before this just turns into us like high-fiving and Burnout, like it's like Darren's work ethic is phenomenal. And that's like, it's where I've overthought things. Like Darren's thought to action time is like milliseconds. It's like thought, action, and then that's one of the things I've like learned from coming in. It's just this immediate application, and it's like, let's get data back. So it's like, we'll do something. Hey, it's probably not going to be perfect, but it's like, we'll do it. Okay, data back. Now we can refine it. Whereas like before, I'm like, well, maybe if I get on my journal and have a nice coffee, and then I'll just like think through the issue. I was like, right, let's get data back, and that's what I feel is, yeah, just really has like made things leap forward in the way they have.
And this can be helpful to other people too, right? Because you need to be relentless, like, well, no doubt about it, and you need to be on the edge at all times, like truly, truly relentless and ruthless. And you need to push extremely hard. But someone needs to do it, right? One person needs to do it and needs to be like driven focused. But then the other people need to actually do the other stuff, right? Which is exactly what you're there for. And I've said it to many other people. I can't speak to you the same way that I would speak to Piyush because you're different, and that's intentional. You're different people, right? Piyush is quite similar to me, one of our team members, and he's kind of like a push guy. Whereas for you, that's not how you get the best out of yourself, right? Likewise for me, I don't want to sit on an idea, but then we need someone to reflect on it. So that's why I think like people that do things together, they have to be hyper complementary. And that's where like in the tech world, they'll say like, you know, you have a non-technical founder, you have a technical founder, so on and so forth. But fuck the technicals. Mainly it's about the implementation and application, because, and it's so funny because you're so dialed in on like the psychological side that I even see the benefit of what you do is literally used indirectly on me. So I'll give an example. We got on a call the other day and you were like, you know, with Europe coming up and us changing things at the moment, how do you see that plan out? And then I was like, I don't think you should go to Europe, bro. And then you were like, yeah, same.
I'd already come to the
decision. Yeah, and then I got off the call and then I sat down and I was like, fucking hell, that was good. And I said it to Elise and I was like, that was so good. And I was like, basically, he had got me to say what he wanted to say, but he had done it in a way that wouldn't have created friction. And then he had done it in a way that I had arrived at the decision, and then I had left the decision. And then afterwards I got off the call, and Lisa was like, but I thought Tom was going to come and everything. And then I was like, no, this is so much better for the business. I was like, he's going to stay here. He's going to lock in. And then she was like, but is that what you want? And I was like, yeah, of course is what I want. And I sat down and I was like, fuck, that was so good. You know? And then that adds an extra layer of it being successful, right? That's what makes it successful. Do you get me?
Yeah.
And I just feel like that anyone that has done anything like reasonably successful, whatever they do, it could be their content, it could be their offer, it could be their sales process, there is that second. There needs to be someone over the shoulder, right?
But the other thing here, like, is we can't understate how much fun it is. Like, this is the other thing as well. Like, I've been building businesses on my own, like, and like, I've been in that stage of just, you know, I had the record label and I was like driving it forward, and it, you know, burnt out, and like I thought I had people with me, and then kind of didn't really, and it's just doing it all myself, and it didn't really work because of that, and for various other reasons. And then, but just doing something with someone like your friend, again, you have to have like, I think we've been very good at this, at like compartmentalizing the relationship, and like anything that's ever come up, we've been able to like dissolve things very, very quickly, and like, hey, this is the thing, let's sort this out, done. And that is very, very important when you're working with a friend, I think, to anything that where there's any kind of friction, it's like dissolve it immediately. It's like, this, okay, let's address, have like, if there's a difficult conversation that we need to have, whatever that is about like implementation, and we've never really like hugely disagreed on anything at all, but it's the same with any relationship, is have the difficult conversations right away.
You know what Sahel Bloom says about that?
What does he say?
So every decision and every conversation that's not had carries a debt. And if you don't resolve it in that moment, the debt increases. And at one point, sooner or later, you have to pay for the debt.
With interest.
Yeah. And if that's in a business situation, you'll get fucked. Like, you'll get absolutely fucked. If it's in a personal aspect, you could spend years of your life with someone that's not a proper match for you. And I give it a typical example could be like having kids.
Yeah.
If you don't have that difficult conversation of having children, well, then 5 years' time, that literally explodes.
Yeah.
Whereas like you could have done that 5 years ago. So, and I think that's what's super interesting. And another layer to that is, I think we're one of the few people in the world that don't view like business decisions or let's say like non-aligned opinions as personal. Like,
Yeah.
I just look at things like so objectively, and I'm just like, we ran the ad, it got no leads, let's turn it off. Agreed? Agreed. And then it's like, we're running these sales calls, we're not making money this way, let's not run it that way. Agreed? Agreed. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, it's not like, well, I think you should do it this way. And you're like, I think you should do it this way. It's like, and I learned this from the tech world. In the tech world, I like ran a product in Revolut at a very high level, like an extremely high level. It's one of the best companies in the entire world. So it literally is the best company in the world for like software. And the mental model in Revolut, which I follow today, is you can do anything, you can change anything, providing you can show it as a positive impact on the P&L.
Yeah.
So whether you reduce the cost or increase the amount of revenue, but if it doesn't do one of those things, you can't do it.
Yeah.
That could be changing the button from green to yellow. Also, there could be something severely wrong with the product, like severely wrong. But if we're still not losing money or not making more money from it, leave it be. You know, because it's prioritization and everything. And just things like that, I've just kind of viewed things very differently. And then even, you know, working with people, hiring people, looking at like mentorships, buying into mentorships. It's like, what are we actually getting from thing? You know, and it's allowed me to just come to peace with some stuff, right? I'm just like, as you said, it's just more enjoyable, right?
This is also why like businesses, and again, one of the questions I wanted to ask you is like something I'm realizing more and more is like, you know, that I've dipped into kind of like the, you know, being in Bali, but being some of the spiritual side of things. And like the more I'm playing this game, the more the most spiritual things you can do, the most spiritual lessons you can learn is build a business, build your physique, and work on your relationships. Like all the lessons you need in life are there. They're not elsewhere. You're not going to find them at like a cacao ceremony in Bud with a bunch of people, I don't know, like sticking their fingers up each other's ass. I don't know, probably do. That's what I've heard. But yeah, like this thing of like, you talk about kind of like dismantling your ego. It's like, yeah, you could go and do like a few sessions of ayahuasca. I'm sure you'd have an ego death. However, when you're running a business and you've got to make decisions and that's when your ego has to actually get out of the way. Like, for example, like the example you just gave there, I think what we understand, and I think everyone on the team, it's like everyone understands what the same incentive and goal is. So it's not that like, okay, the disagreement isn't on the goal. The disagreement is like, oh, well, is it this path or is it this path?
Is it this thumbnail or that thumbnail?
And it's like, it's kind of, yeah, it's laughable when you look back. But then if you're emotional, if you're like caught up with like, well, I spent like this long, like thinking about it and I worked on this, it's like, okay, but we're working towards the same goal. And like, we need everyone to move together. Like, yeah, you can have one person who's like, well, I'm going to walk on this path. And it's like, okay, well, now you're on your own. So sometimes
never happened with me, bro. It's never, yeah. Like, it's just again, it's the decision is always towards the goal, right? Like everything is based on the objective, and it could be as silly as a thumbnail because I've actually had that this week, sitting on a call, reviewing thumbnails. I think it's like this. Guy thinks it's like that. Let's run a thumbnail test. Let's see what the market thinks. It's literally, it was the outcome. It was a 7-minute conversation. Yeah, and there was a big meeting that we had about design, and I was like, let's just test the market.
That's getting your ego out of the way. Like, so business is going to provide all the lessons you need to learn your self-development on your self-development journey. There's definitely internal reflection to do at stages, but really, like if there's an error in your operating system and how you're showing up, there's that famous thing. It's like your business is a reflection of yourself. Well, it's going to be reflected back to you. Like your business is literally going to be the physical manifestation of your flaws, your great attributes as well. But then like your flaws are going to be there, and it's like, oh, well, why does that happen? It's because I made decisions in this way because of this particular mindset and this belief I have. It's like, oh, unpack that. And now I'm doing like inner work as well.
Let's just give a few examples. Let's just run a few like scenario analysis. Like, you know, you ever heard of Monte Carlo analysis?
No.
Monte Carlo simulation is like how you run different simulations of finance. Anyway, let's give a few examples. So I mentioned earlier about being extremely rootless. So I ran track at a very high level, 100 meter at a very high level before, you know, everyone got like super fucking big and I was so small. And that was an extremely rootless sport. I was super young. I had to grow up super fast. I was basically like, I had to have the attitude of a pro athlete, like 14, 15, 16. And I was a loser until I was a winner. And then when I won, I always had to look over my shoulder because soon I was going to be the loser. And I was like stabbed in my neck. As a result, when I got out of that and got out of playing sport, went to school, it was the same attitude. I got to win. I got to keep going. I got to keep improving. And then when I went into the corporate world out of college, that was the opposite. It was super woke. Everyone holds their hands. Everyone's wearing daisy chains. I was without a doubt a top performer. I got promoted. I tried to get double promoted. They wouldn't allow me because of the system. Okay, so it promoted a weak system whereby people could coast. Okay, but I had ran businesses when I was younger. When I was 17, I ran a business. When I was 20, I ran a business. I made a good bit of money, went to zero. I built a startup at 21, went to zero. And I was getting used to just chewing glass all day, every day, walking across crushed glass 24/7. And I was just having these scars being built on my face over and over again, so that I had these higher levels of maturity to be able to go into like a business and be able to solve things, be able to like get clients and so on. We have someone that's come into the mastermind who was at my school, who again got into entrepreneurship at a very young age, chewed glass. Both of us have built like multi-7-figure businesses in our 20s. He's actually a couple of weeks older than me, so he's in March as well. Because we had taken the rough roads and smooth roads and rough. And this guy chewed glass, bro, for a decade. And now he's like, quote unquote, successful. Look at the opposite. The guy who takes the easy path, who takes the career path, and even successful in his career and his school and so on and so forth, they are just inherently soft. They're soft on the surface because they literally are fat and bald. And then they're soft on a deeper metaphysical level because their entire identity and life is based on a company that gave them pillows. Okay? And then their attitude towards things is soft. So that is the reason why they're not successful. It's just straight up. They're just not. And the whole game is based on who's willing to put glass in their mouth and chew it long enough. This is like what the whole game is based on. People like Iman, who've been a huge influence on me and you, have just done it. I've just fucking at the shit, you know? And it's a very simple litmus test because then you can do the roll up into the day-to-day stuff, right? Like I've spent like $70,000 this week. I haven't even, it's water off my back, bro. Like I haven't noticed it. I literally spent $55,000 sending it to a client, and then I spent an extra $20,000 on a mentorship, and I spent another like 10K on like salaries this week. I don't notice it, bro. It just comes in one year, comes out the other. And you get to that point from doing all the other points. From living in hell and everything for so long, you can deal with that high levels of pressure. And I'm like, all right, like it's chill, like whatever, you know, we're operating at a higher level of frequency. So the frequency that you give is also what you receive. And that seems quite meta and quite Bali vibe, but it's true though, because you're able to just tolerate higher levels of stuff, which means in turn, we just have fun. Just have fun with it, right? And then it's like, sale closes, sale doesn't close, win, loss, client win, client churns. Fuck it. Yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll improve that process. And it's like, hey, like, did we fix that? Yeah, we'll fix that, and so on and so forth, right? It's like team, boys club, like sports team vibe. And I think that's when you like win together as a team, taking all the emotion out of it, right? And I see that over and over again. And it's just fixing those problems as they come up and just getting to that higher level of almost like operation. It's a very interesting thing to kind of think about. And if you see the guys at the top, that's what they all kind of have, you know?
Yeah, it is. I love that you start using the word frequency. It's true though, isn't it? This is what it all comes back to.
Even how I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'm kind of like on one roll of coffee.
Let's go.
But like, I've identified that from like doing a small bit of inner work compared to like you and some of the other guys, whereby I deliberately, if you watch my sales call, I'll just come in on a sales call. I'm like super overly energetic, super buzzing, because they want to be you, right? So if I'm sitting there in my dungeon super miserable, they're going to be like,
do you want this lifestyle?
Yeah, exactly. But like the fact that I almost like, for anyone who doesn't know, like I have like a dungeon at home, I call it. It's a small like 4x4 room. And we can like personify it because I truly enjoy what when I do. So it's almost like personified, right? And it's like a funny kind of thing because you grow to like enjoy it. Does that make sense? And you bring that energy, right? And it's always that energy you bring. When we're running events, it's the energy we bring. We run dinners and so on and so forth. So
it's mission. It's mission and impact, right? It's like, here's what I think is interesting. There's a lot of kind of Baliness that happens around us, and we kind of joke about it sometimes, and there's some truth in some of it, and
keeps us grounded.
Like there's a big thing with kind of like, hey, like, you know, is my offer aligned? Is my offer like aligned to my highest self?
Never thought about that shit, bro. I've never thought about that.
So if you want to actually talk about like what is the most spiritual thing you can do, it's being service to others. Now, if you pose that question, there's honestly like the amount of conversations or the amount of, what's the mental procrastination about, well, is it really aligned with like my full essence? Okay, you're thinking about yourself. The reason your business isn't working is because you're focused on self and like this magic business that's going to like give you an orgasm every time you open the laptop. It's like, actually, the most spiritual thing to do is, how can I be of service? And maybe like how you're of service is like, you're really good at like, you have these skills. So help people. There's your offer. You're of service. You're doing what you meant to do. That's it. But the longer you kind of think of this, like, well, am I aligned? Is it going to like be a full expression of my soul? It's like, yeah, maybe over time. But at the moment, if you're not making a certain amount of cash and you're stuck, maybe just think about how you can help others and answer that question rather than, is it like deeply aligned with my soul and purpose here on.
But also, what even is alignment? Let's have a quick look at that, because it's a very interesting concept, right? I joke that I've never ever sold anything that I've never done myself. I used to run raves because I was at raves. I used to sell vintage clothing to rave kids because I wore all the vintage clothing. I tried to build a passport app because I was traveling all the time and I'd lose my passport. I built a podcast because I want to listen to podcasts. And then I started selling podcast consulting, coaching, agency stuff because I was doing it. That is alignment, bro. Like, I had solved the problem for myself. Therefore, I can turn around to you and be like, hey, Tom, you should fix out your podcast. You should fix out your YouTube channel. Is that aligned? Of course it's aligned. Why? Because I've done it. Someone comes in cold and they say, well, why should I listen to you? It's because like, I literally did this and you are here because of what I've done. You're talking to me right now because of the thing that I've done. I've gone into the most insane rooms. I've met some of like the biggest guys in like the world in the space because of the things that I do and the alignment between there. I think that's the biggest like hack. That's the biggest flex and social proof. And I often joke that you don't even need clients. You just need to do it for yourself. You know, we had a dinner recently and I said to everyone there, you need to embody what it is you sell. One guy's a breath work and like stress relief coach. He can't be stressed. Plain and simple. Some guys helping people with relationships. He needs to have solid relationships. That is what's in alignment. And then therefore, if someone's like, well, show me the portfolio of clients you have. It's like, fuck off. You don't need to. And dude, I literally have, and this is what's so funny is that I am saying this from the position of someone that has done that. I have literally gone on calls with people and they were like kind of older or like different niches and stuff from my podcast, from my clients. And they'd be like, show me your client results. And I would just show them my YouTube channel. And I'm like, this is it. This is me. And they're like, well, show me someone who's similar to me. I'm like, you don't need to see them. You just need to see me because I've done it. And I promise you, it will be like this. Like, how can I be certain? I'm like, see the number there? How much videos does it look like? Does it look like I've released? 1,000. Okay, perfect. Released 1,000 videos in 4 years on YouTube. So you get that's where I can come into a conversation. And it's interesting. So for people who are listening to this and they're kind of like, well, I don't know everything about everything. What I've learned from interviewing some of the biggest guys in the world, from the most successful entrepreneurs in the world, and I've been around these people, is everybody is a complete beginner at 99.9% of things in the entire world. And you are already ahead of 99% of people in the thing that you love and you're good at. So I can sit down with someone and be like, yeah, you probably shouldn't open up the podcast like that, or X, Y, and Z. And this person could be a $100 million CEO. It doesn't matter because who's someone who's like growth focused and wanting to do better in his life, will look at your experience and be like, oh, yeah, that's super helpful. Anything else you help me with? And then the guy will be like, yeah, sure. Because that's the language you want to speak, you know? So like that to me is alignment, 100%.
Conviction again there. There's a thing that I'm going to say now, and it's been something I've been sitting on because the minute I say it, I know a bunch of people here are going to start copying it. And it's exactly what you spoke about earlier, and it speaks to everything you've just said now. So to put this in context, words are kind of irrelevant. Language is all made up. So like your marketing is kind of all made up, really. So if you're struggling with like alignment and a niche and all of this shit, the phrase is you're a frequency, not a niche. And it's exactly like what you said. You got to embody. You got to embody the frequency. That's your job. The words you use to communicate that, they're always going to be muddled. You know, they're going to be limited by your vocabulary. They're going to be limited by your language and who you're communicating with and the filter it goes through when it's kind of perceived by them. We put it through our own internal filters. So really, exactly like you said, the biggest things work on the conviction. How do you do that? By like being in the mud, chewing the glass, actually have done it. And you will attract, you said it, you will attract based on the frequency you're operating at. You're a frequency, not a niche. Focus on the frequency, focus on how you're operating, and then you will find more people who are attracted to that, want to raise to that level in that aspect. You'll find the people. And it's again, it's always focus on the growth, focus on the work, focus on doing it. Like the reason we're kind of working together as well is like I had the podcast with you in Bangkok, which was like the most fun thing I'd done in like 2 years. I was like, podcasts are awesome, Darren. You're like, I fucking know. I was like, I want to do that. And then, started doing it. And I ate glass. Like I was there just fucking editing everything. I didn't know about podcasts. I'm not a video editor or anything. And I've been like training other video editors. So I sat there in front of my laptop on my own in fucking Thai islands, just editing shit and just like making it better. And I was like, oh, this isn't quite good enough yet. Okay, I'm going to make it better. And that's when it gets to the point. It's like, oh, look, we can probably like, we're on a similar path here. Like, let's rock and roll with this. But again, yeah, frequency, you're a frequency, not a niche. Watch someone put that in their bio now. Watch someone put it out in their bio and start selling that offer. It's good. It's good. Something I wanted to ask you kind of like, I think it's really interesting and something that I'm contemplating at the moment is this idea that you said at the beginning, everyone's has the same problems. It's just to kind of like different degrees, different capacities and different circumstances. Health, wealth, relationships. It always is kind of in one of those buckets. Now, as and when you solve those problems, because these are the problems that everyone has, when you solve a relationship problem, you become more valuable to others because everyone has relationship problems. When you solve a financial problem, you become more valuable to others because everyone has those problems. So it's like, notice these problems in your life and then approach them with the desire to dissolve them, grow, and, become more valuable from learning the lessons they're teaching you. So, but the question I wanted to pose is, there's kind of been a very much a rhetoric of, hey, get successful, then get the girl. Okay. Or focus on your body, then get the girl. Or focus on your body, then start a business. Or build a business, then focus on your body. So like, I'm curious, like your approach to that. I think you have a very holistic approach to kind of like leveling them all up at the kind of the same time. However, where would you start there? Like, it's like fitness first. Fitness is the gateway drug to entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is the gateway drug to like a bit of confidence. Confidence is the gateway drug to like talking to the woman you like. Is there kind of like, I mean, I have some thoughts, but what's your approach to that?
So your body is your highest point of leverage. Your health is highest point of leverage. There's no point having all the money in the world if you can't get out of bed, right? If you're sick, it doesn't matter, right? It won't solve your issues. You're going to need to always have your health in place. You don't need to be 35 and successful to get your health in place. Dude, I was training since I was like 10 years old, younger, 5 years old. Health has always been a priority and I've always been healthy. That's not even like a should you. It's like, it must be at all times in your entire life. If you don't do that, you will die literally earlier. Quite simple. So training, nutrition, movement, sleep, recovery. That's just non-negotiable. No one gives a shit, dude, if you put a fucking strap on your nose. That's not going to save you at the end of the day. It's the 80-20. It's, are you moving every day for an hour? Are you in the gym 5 days a week? Are you making progress? And then are you eating well, right? Because if the nutrition's not dialed in, it's all a shit show. When you start to autistically measure all of that stuff and become really good at that and proficient and get a feedback loop of positive behavior, if you're egotistical, the feedback loop could be in the mirror, you will start to take those traits into other aspects of your life. So whether that is reading a book, whether that is starting something, it doesn't matter. But that is the underlying trait of just being actually healthy and taking care of yourself. Brother, if you can't take care of yourself, how could you take care of a business? How could you take care of a team? How could you take care of your wife? If you're like fat and broke and you can't do anything, like that is, you are screwed, bro. And also other people are going to see that in you, right? Why would I work with someone who's super sloppy, wakes up at 11 o'clock in the morning, smashes pizza, goes out and drinks beer in the evening and is overweight and out of shape? Like that's not it's a symbol. Like your physique is a symbol for what you do in life. And if you don't have that set up, you're screwed. Just in general, that's not to do with the business. And I had seen that working in the corporate world, just to give a bit of a kind of a reference point, right? Is that I had every single day when I worked in banking, I would come in at 8 a.m. Everyone would come in at 9 a.m. I had just finished the gym. I'd have two gear bags, one on my clothes, one on my food. And I'd align the fridge with lunch boxes. And everyone would come and take the piss out of me. They all said I'd be fat and bald by the time I was 30. I'm now 29 and I have the longest hair I've ever had and I'm shredded. Right? And it was not to do with how I look and not to do with trying to be better than someone. It was quite simple. Standard. Here is the standard. Because in the business that we run, I have standards. There is an acceptable standard that I have. And anything below that is not good enough. And I have a high bar. So my standard, my average standard for daily output is up here. Because that's just the standard I set. Whether it's physical or metaphysical, where that standard is, it's fucking there. So I'll wake up, I'll walk the dogs, I'll eat. I won't eat, sorry. I'll have coffee, I'll sit down and work, and I'll do 2 or 3 hours of work in the morning. Just a baseline. Because that's just baseline standard. It's my standard. Okay? And then at that point, then you have taken care of yourself to give yourself competency. And again, confidence precedes competency. Right? I was training all my life to know that I would never be out of shape. Right? And even when I'm training, just for a bit more context on this, now I do like heavy bulks and heavy cuts. I've been 8 kilos over what I am now. This year, 8 kilos. People were commenting on my post saying, has my gym membership expired? Have I given up? And I knew, again, beware of the ninja that moves in the dark, that when you're sleeping is actually working. I knew I'd rip it back around. I just knew it because I know that I have the characteristic trait to follow something autistically and just get to the point I need to get to. 12 weeks, 16 weeks, 20 weeks. Yeah, we'll work it out, but that's having confidence, right? That is what confidence is. And then at that point, you may be just a meat potato, okay? But you can start exploring different interests then because you know then I have confidence in myself that if I wanted to try something, I have enough confidence based on past data that I'll stick with something, right? If I'm trying to learn something and learn a new skill, I'll get into something and I can stick with it, right? And I think when you're someone like that who's like a man on a mission and like men's journey in life is to like suffer and achieve things. Like that's what men are designed to do, is to achieve things, not to sit around fucking lighting candles. We're designed to achieve stuff, right? So when you're a guy that's on a mission, you will attract someone who is equally either admiring that or actually just appreciates what you're doing in that way. And like that's how I ended up like attracting my wife, who I was just someone who was just autistically doing things. And she's like, oh, this guy's super interesting. And he's also kind of funny. And he has like a few other different things that I might be attracted to. And then that's how that like blossomed, right? I didn't go like looking for it. I didn't go like look under this cup and check what you hear. And then be like, well, I haven't got my Stripe account to 7 figures yet this month. So I can't look for someone. Like, that is the dumbest shit ever. Because you're going to miss opportunities. Just like you'll miss opportunities in life if you're just stuck in your mom's basement. You don't get up and see the world. Like the opportunity finds you at the right time and you have to like seize that opportunity. So when I met Elise at that time, I was working in a 9 to 5. I just been coming out of a couple of businesses. I was super exhausted from running shit. And then Elise was traveling, and then me and Elise would travel together, my wife. And then we'd be characteristic trait quite aligned, right? Now, she didn't give a shit about how many reps I did in the gym, and she didn't give a shit about what I was doing in my job, but she just gave a shit about who I was, how I treated her, how I showed up in the world, okay? So characteristic trait. Then when I went to go build something, then because you've attracted someone who is like on a same vibe as you, like or same frequency as you. When I met Elise, I had minus $10,000 in my bank account, right? Now I make multiple 6 figures every single month. She has never changed her opinion and belief of me ever since. Everything that we do is an amazing bonus and we're super grateful for it and it's amazing. But it does not change what we think of each other. If I'm still a prick, I'm a prick. It doesn't matter how much money I make. If I'm very kind, it doesn't matter if I'm broke or if I'm super wealthy, I'm a kind person. I know many kind people who don't make a lot of money and they're great people. It doesn't matter, right? The money is literally irrelevant. But then when you're on that pursuit, you're winning together. And like we've achieved amazing things, me and you together. Me and Elise have achieved amazing things together. And literally today, I said to Elise, I was like, we've done everything we've ever wanted to do. I left my job in corporate. I built my 4th business that eventually worked out. I made all the money that I ever thought of before I turned 30. My goal when I was 20, when I went into banking, was to make 100K a year by the time I was at the end of and I was 30. No, but I was 25 was 100K a year, and by the time I was 30 was to make $1 million. And I had got to $1 million by the time I was 28. So beginning of 28. When I was 28 years old, I made my first million. Yeah. So I'd achieved everything I could ever have asked for. Plus, with my podcast, I've interviewed everyone that I've ever wanted to interview. And at all points, Elisa's been with me and my wife on that journey. And it's just been like this journey together. And if something works out, and if something doesn't work out, and if the funnel doesn't work, she doesn't think different of me. You know? And that's why health, wealth, and relationships becomes this like ongoing pillar, basically. And Sahel Bloom was big influence on me. He calls it the 5 pillars of wealth, right? And he includes like freedom and time and stuff in it too. But in essence, that's like the mission, and that's when you guys are like on a mission together, you know. And that's when values are aligned, interests are aligned, and then just take another step further, and I'll just go a little bit deeper. My wife isn't interested in my business. She doesn't give a shit about the business. Like, as much as I'd love my wife to care, she does not care about my close rate. It's gone from 48% to 52%, and I'm so happy about that. But unfortunately, she's not interested in that. She's more interested in me and the interest that we share, which is basically just dogs and traveling and a preference towards freedom and self-sovereignty. Because that's how we first like met, was that we both just were disgruntled with how the world operates. And I was like, fuck someone or some country telling me I can do whatever, do something. I'm just going to do what I want. And that was a very strong rhetoric that I've had all my entire life. Like I've been very, very, what's the word? Rebellious, yeah, all my entire life. And, you know, someone who's like a very, very driven, but if you told me to do something, I'm not going to do it straight up, you know? But I just would generally just never, ever listen to anyone's feedback ever, especially if they don't have the goals that I have and if they're broken, they're fat. So, and that's what was quite interesting, because that's what me and Elise really preference. And now, many years later, 7 months being married, I've never, in my entire life, we've never changed those beliefs.
I think I love it, man, and congratulations.
Well, last thing I would say,
let's go,
is the reason why I'm really passionate about this is because I grew up around chaos. You know, a family that shouldn't be in a family, parents that shouldn't have been together, like chaos and fucking screaming and physical abuse and emotional abuse and manipulative abuse, to the point that I thought it was normal. And I had like that proper like feeling in my chest of like something was wrong all the time, that sinking feeling. Just grew up around like all of that like fear and based fear. And that's why I'm playing such a strong game towards like indexing on relationships, because I've seen how bad that is and how awful that is and how terrible that is. And that was awful for me as a child and like screwed me so sideways that I'm not going to do that, you know? And then that's not the person I want to be. And I'm not fucking perfect anyway, but I'm especially not going to be that person, you know? And if that means I don't do things like other people, like I know I'll tell you that I don't want children, right? And yes, you could obviously fucking heal the boy and have children, overcome it. But if I know, if I don't want the thing that I grew up around, I'm not going to do it, right? I'm just not going to do it, right? And I'm not going to be that person, put myself in that scenario, because I've seen it, you know. And again, it's just the scares, you know. There's just so many scares that it's like there's nothing wrong with having a scare, providing you learn a lesson. You know, and I've looked at those things objectively. I've actually in my 20s with like horrific PTSD to look at it and be like, well, I remember coming home and no one talking and screaming and roaring to the point of like nearly physical fights, fucking 6 days a week. So maybe I won't do that, you know? And it's just an interesting thing, right? Because our default mechanism is actually to mirror what we've had, the experiences and lives that we've had. Which is why people go back to the same tripwires over and over again. So I've identified that and been like, interesting. So that's what I'm not going to pursue, basically.
You literally absorb your parents' nervous systems when you come into this world.
Yeah, Ryan told me that, actually.
Yeah, it's a survival method instinct.
And again, around fucking chaos, bro. Like all my life, you know?
Well, it was your work to unpick that, and you know, you came here for that reason. And as a footnote, we won't get into it now, but Darren would make a great dad. I always say this.
Well, the thing is, I know I would.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, right? It's like I like to say I have like 3 children already, right? And like
The dogs.
these dogs, and like, and even like logically, people joke that like dogs are like children, and in many regard they are, because I'd look at them, I'm like, oh fuck, like, the dogs need to be walked a bit more, they look a bit overweight, we need to like change their food maybe a small bit, or like maybe there's like a coat, something wrong with their coat, we gotta like, go get them washed. And like Elisa's would also be like a really good mother. She's also kind of chaotic though, in terms of like, I feel like that she would need like a lot of support, and she also recognizes that, and she doesn't want to do it. But it's just like, do you want that, right? Because I'll give you an example. I bet I would, we were talking earlier about boxing. I bet I'd be pretty good if I got went back into boxing. Proficient. But do I want to do it? Just because I'd be quote unquote like, good at it or decent at it, do I need to do it? No. Do I have something to prove to someone? Fuck no. And do I want to go through like that just to prove someone? No. Like, I don't want to prove anything to anyone. And if someone's like, oh, but like you should do it and all this, I'm like, yeah, maybe. Like maybe I should do it. Right? But like maybe you need to put down the donut and go to the gym. But I'm fucking tell you to do that, right? Like,
Yeah.
but you get me, right? That's why it's a very, and I'm happy to discuss that, because it's a very like taboo thing. And I'm like, I know I'll be a fucking better dad than you.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, I'd care more about it, but I'm just not on that mission, bro. And that's chill.
Here's what I'm interested in talking about, and with mission there, and I think everything you spoke to. There's a great book again, The Science of Getting Rich and the Science of Being Great by Wallace D. Wattles. I mention him all the time because he's fucking awesome. And one of the biggest business and life lessons I took from those books is that you must convey a sense of increase in all that it is you do, and that goes across your relationships and your kind of business as well. And what makes you attractive, and we speak about this in terms of marketing as well, what makes you an attractive character, to use Russell Brunson's phrasing, is that people can see that, one, there's forward momentum, there's a gap between where you are and where they are, but also that there's increase, it's growth, it's alive, it's a plant that's growing, it's not stagnating, it's not you've got somewhere and now there's a gap, but it's still growing. That's what actually creates that forward momentum. That's what makes you attractive. But I also believe you understand this intrinsically, because everything you spoke about going to the gym, getting your meals in order, building the business, even if you're minus 10K in debt, Elise wasn't attracted to the workouts, wasn't attracted to the meal plan or the number in the bank account. It's the sense of increase and momentum that you are cultivating in an energetic vortex of forward momentum that people intrinsically feel. And that's what we always say with like marketing as well in your messaging. You're a frequency, not a niche. And what you're communicating is your vibe. And if your vibe is a vortex or a person who is in this upward spiral of increasing in various aspects of life, that makes you very, very, very attractive.
It makes it dangerous. It's fucking dangerous. Because you're someone, and like some of the feedback I get from people a lot of times is that like, you just don't stop. And I'm like, I know, because I'm on distraction. We had dinner last night, and everyone's like, so what do you do? And I'm like, this. And they're like, but outside of it, I'm like, bro, I swear to God, I don't do anything else. And then they're like, how do I know that's true? I'm like, we're running a 4 million year business. That's what happens. As in, you get that outcome when you don't do the other stuff. And that's how the gap and the draws, right? And it's a very interesting thing, because then you see over a long enough time horizon how people annihilate people. And then how the people, as you mentioned, mainly on the relationship side, you don't need to be successful to attract someone, but you need to be moving forward. And then they see that evolution and growth, right? Because all those different components of someone who's the aspirational leader, right? Someone who's actually just moving forward. They're like, oh yeah, awesome. Because everyone's goals can be different, right? And that's why you made a good point, because like in the relationship vortex, you could say like, yeah, having children is moving forward and there's forward momentum there, which is true, right? Which is definitely true. I guess like you just need to define what that is, right? And I think the default plan to just like get a mortgage and then just hammer it out and then just have kids isn't forward momentum, right? That's just default. That's just NPC, like system 6 of spiral dynamics, right? It's just like fucking stuck in the middle. But you need to make those decisions and be like, okay, if we're not going to have children, what does our life look like? Okay, we'll have a ton of dogs, we'll travel, we'll be in Bali for a long time. It's like, and Middle East, every once in a while, be like, you want to live in Mexico? I'm like, probably don't want to get arrested, kidnapped. I'm like, all right, cool. All right, want to live in Egypt? She's like, ugh. Pyramid's kind of shit. You know, it's just like there has to be motion in the relationship at all times, same in the business and so on. And yeah, it's a Hormozy effect, right? But like businesses painful, growth is painful, stagnation is painful, failure is painful, but they're all painful, right? But the real, you know, NPC who's like stuck in the day grind doesn't have the self-awareness that where they are is painful. They have such a low level of awareness. And I think that talking about levels of awareness is such an interesting topic, because it's kind of like a term that I've only learned in the past couple of like even like months, to be honest. It's like, how problem aware are people of that problem? It's easy to say, you're in 9 to 5, it sucks. But most guys are around people that are in 9 to 5s, so they don't know that it sucks. If you only make 3K a month and everyone around you makes 3K a month, well, you don't know what a 5K a month feels like, and you don't know that's better. It's interesting. Right? It's such an interesting thing to double tap on. Just to give it a business reference, we used to find this in the agency on the podcast side, because I'd be like, how's the podcast coming along? And it's well known in the podcast space that everyone does really badly. You know, no growth, no money. So they're like, 30 downloads, getting there. And then they're like, I'm making no money, because it's a well-known fact that everyone in the podcast space make no money. So if I'm like, oh, but you can make money, they're like, no, you can't. And then it was a very difficult sell from that perspective.
Yeah. Understanding that level of awareness is everything. Positioning is so important, and like that's when your messaging turns into like a sniper bullet. And it's, again, like you said with the 9 to 5 example, it's like your messaging, if you're doing an offer that helps people get out of their 9 to 5, let's say, like, is your audience problem aware? Like, if they're not problem aware, then your content needs to be kind of like educational content to make them problem aware. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be buyers. So maybe you want to speak to only people who are problem aware, and now they're looking for a solution. And it's like, you have to understand this. And there's so many of the people we work with, it's a big part of the work we do, right? It's like really finding out, right, what is the level of awareness of your avatar? Because that literally changes everything. Also, go on.
Just also, like, from a business owner perspective, like from the online entrepreneur, their levels of awareness as to what they should be doing, right? I get on our weekly call every week, and I'm like, Stalin, bro. I'm like, don't come to me and tell me you have a problem with leads unless you spend 4 hours a day working on the leads. Spend 4 hours, your first 4 hours of the day, the hardest, the most fucking glass is meant to be eaten. If you're not chewing that glass for the first 4 hours a day, don't tell me you got a sales problem, because you don't know. And people like Monica, one of our clients, she's gone and done it. She has like 150 messages that are open every morning, and she's like, oh, I'm super overwhelmed. I'm like, good, because now you're working on the business versus this procrastination. Gonna do this, bullshit, bro, bullshit. So I think it's very interesting, because we bring people into our ecosystem. We call it the recovery program, because they're just doing the wrong thing. Like, your only job as a business owner is to make money. There's fucking nothing else you need to do. You just need to make money. You need to use the business to make money. You need to get more sales, because if you don't have sales, it's over. All over. Doesn't matter what kind of a template looks like. Doesn't matter what all this looks like. If you can't bring people in to buy your stuff, it's over, bro. Whether that's paid in full, whether that's a split, whether it's weekly pricing, it's irrelevant. But if you bring enough people in, it solves all problems. I always like to say, what's the one problem that if solved, solves everything else? It's money, dude. You just make the business owner make more money. And in virtue of that, then it gets into the layers. Yes, there's the offer. Yes, you need to get more leads. Yes, you need to create more content. Yes, you need to get more sales. And then it's a problem-solution continuum. It will never, ever stop. And this is the big thing we're always doing with our clients, which I'm showing. You got to work on the offer, and then you got to get the leads, and then you got to do the sales process. But then you will realize that your offer doesn't scale. We got to go back there. You can't get good leads. Or let's say your warm leads are over. Warm leads over. What do? Do you close the business? No. You go to cold leads, next layer of the business. And then you go to sales, you realize you're shit at sales because you eventually start tracking them, and then you learn sales, right? But it will never end. And the reason why it'll never end, let's give an example, okay? Let's say you run a fitness offer and you're helping people lose fat, okay? Good offer. People are fat, and people are fat everywhere, bro. Good offer. Now we need to get leads. We create content on Instagram, doing your origin story video, showing you as an authority, okay? Fantastic. Bunch of warm leads, bunch of fat fucks contact you who went to high school with you, they're all bald, right? They book calls. And then you get on the calls, you close some of them, like 50% of them, because they know you from drinking beer at the bar, right? Now you have like 4 clients. Then you realize that your one-to-one fitness offer doesn't actually scale, and you're super stressed and you stop doing marketing. Now we put more of a scalable offer in. Okay. Now you have a way to help fat fucks at scale. Then you go back to leads and you realize that, wait, I can only put out 1 or 2 reels a day. I need to learn ads, or I need to open up YouTube, or I need to go onto LinkedIn. And then you realize you're hitting cold traffic. So now you've got more leads, but now they're all cold. And now you bring them into the sales process. And now you realize your 50% close rate was actually a mirage. It's actually 20 because you're inherently shit at sales. So you learn sales. And then you will just go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And it will only stop when you die. That's it. It will never stop. You only stop when you die. So the business dies or you die. Because the only other way to get out of this is just to quit. There's no quit life or quit the business. And there will never, ever be a time when that's not the process.
Yeah.
Especially in the space or in the online business space, right? Because the only other opposite of that is if you're doing like some low ticket bollocks and you're getting millions and millions of views and it's a different business model. But the business model that everyone's in is this business model. And I think it's just very funny because the guys that are teaching this stuff and the biz op guys, they've just missed the point. Right? They just missed the point. And like people are teaching you content and people are teaching you sales, right? People are teaching you to become better at sales, but you're selling a piece of shit. So if you just learn how to create something that people actually want, then the sales process is easier. And then you have, I'll give an example. So let's say you're a fitness guy, you're teaching people to lose fat. There's nutrition, there's training, there's recovery, and there's just overall health. Okay. If you know that your offer is going to do that, well, then your content is just that. You don't talk about the football game. You don't talk about all the other bullshit. You don't talk about the politics or the government or Gary Stevenson. You leave him over here. You just talk about the offer, right? And then that just gets married, and then you'll get loads of objections, and you hop on sales calls, and you'll get some client testimonials and some case studies, and that just becomes the content. I've never, ever woke up and thought, what will I create today? It's just the thing that we sell. And then we go and refine that process. And then just think that, a lot of guys are saying things and trying to help people and trying to help people to do stuff, but they're just missing the point. And it's funny because the guys that are telling you to do something have shit offers because they're not really focused on like the core tenets of like, why do people buy things anyway? And I joke, and I have to be very kind of delicate with this sometimes because sometimes we have clients that they're not in it for the money, quote unquote, or their customers aren't buying for the money, but everything is to make money, bro. Let me give you an example. If you're teaching me about relationships and I'm teaching you about how to come home and have a better relationship with your kids and everything, I'm teaching you how to handle the pressure in your business. And I'm truly teaching you nervous systems and all this stuff so that you can come home to your kids. But by virtue of doing that, I satisfy the relationship vortex. But by doing that offer gets better by saying, look, you're going to be less stressed. So you remember that boardroom meeting that you fucking cooked on? You'll be better there, dude. So you'll actually grow your business. You'll be a little more stressed. And you're going to do it much better over here. And now we just have a stronger offer that's relationship, but it has a relative loose outcome. And then it's like, look, dude, cortisol is actually a massive contributor to being fat. So now that you're less stressed and you can handle the pressure and you have a better relationship with your kids, you're actually going to get like literally in better shape. You're going to be a little bit more healthier and optimize your health. And then eventually you can get back to maybe running around the yard with your kids. And maybe you might even get it better. You might even get even healthier. So now from working on the relationships that you have at home, interaction with your wife and your kids, now you're not going to become home stressed, and now you're going to be moving more, and you're going to be less stressed. You're sleeping better. Bro, if you're sleeping better, how much that worth to you? It's worth a lot to me. So this 10K that you're going to spend, that's worth a lot to you, right? Because I guess you don't want to be divorced. Let's be serious. Yeah, sure. I don't want to lose my kids. Fuck yeah. I also don't want to fuck up that boardroom meeting. And I also wouldn't mind to be able to actually fucking see my dick again. Well, that's worth 10K to me. And that's how, when you learn like the laws, like the physical laws and the metaphysical laws of like how the universe actually works, I can get a call with anyone, sell anything to anyone. And I've done that from someone who sold millions of dollars online. I've sold $200,000 products over and over again. That's the thing. Not once. I've done the same thing over and over again because I'm able to just find out what does someone want and then what does someone truly want and how much needs does that truly satisfy. Downstream. And that's not selling. That's not selling. That's actually helping people.
Yeah.
It's actually helping someone because back to levels of problem awareness, they have no idea, bro. They have no idea how deep it goes, you know, how deep it truly goes. And just to finish up this point, Michael Campion, who's like a good friend of ours, also a client of mine, I hired Michael as a public speaking coach. And I helped Michael with his offers. He won't mind me saying this. And then he was trying to like tell me, he was like, yeah, like this is how much it's going to cost and we'll teach you how to speak better. And I was like, brother, no. You are going to teach me how to speak and how to show up, and I will be able to make a ton of money downstream. I'll be able to be much more confident on stage. I'll be able to fly around the world, get on stage, and I won't be stressed. It's not going to help me speak, bro. I don't care about the words coming out of my mouth. I know I'll be able to have much more influence, just like all the Roman leaders did back in the day. I know I'll be able to show up on stage much more relaxed, and I know I'll be much more confident because I'm pissed off that my speech isn't getting better from 5 years of podcasting. I was like, brother, you don't need to tell me anything. I'm good. You know, and then afterwards, then as he's a client of ours, I'm trying to advise him on like you got to say that to people because people are kind of like inherently not aware and they're not aware that this does it to them. You need to tell them. And we're doing that in our program, which is what I'm trying to get people to post when they make their first 10K because they look at someone like me or you and they're like, well, you know, he's up here, so he doesn't really value what I'm doing. I'm like, no, bro. Like, you just sold something for 1K. That's amazing. Posted. I want to celebrate it with you. I will go in and actually physically celebrate it with you. Kind of combination of cursor grant and knowledge there too.
Yeah. Man, that was an epic rant. I love that. That was sick. I'm learning. Something that's come up, and we spoke about this the other day, because there's a lot of kind of copycat offers that it always happens in the BizOps space, and to an extent, it's always going to happen, and it's kind of the nature of the beast there. Something we noticed that, we won't say any names, but we noticed that with someone, a couple of people kind of maybe using some of our vocabulary as well, and hey, maybe we've heard it from somewhere, who knows, whatever. It's all good fun. Competition is great. However, we were kind of like, look, well, they're doing this. Come on, like you just plucked it. Like at least be a bit more creative. However, like the kind of thing I remember when we spoke on like a call or voice note, it was like, we don't need to worry because we're selling scars.
Yeah.
You've chewed the glass for so long. We're selling our scars, whereas these people are selling their wounds. They've just learned something and they're selling their wounds. It's a bleeding open wound and they're trying to sell it. Whereas if you've chewed the glass for however many years, been in this space, I've been in it for however long, in like the music scene, doing the same thing. And before, and like you've been in like Revolut, I've been in the fucking system. Like we've been in shit. Like we've worked our ways out of it before we've come together. But we're selling scars. And again, when it comes back to what we spoke about at the beginning of the conversation, conviction, when you've got a scar across your face and you say something, that's conviction. It's like, oh, you've been to battle. When you've got a bleeding open wound and you're trying to like pivot your messaging and say something new, people can feel it. There's not a scar across your face. When there's a scar across your face, I'm going to listen to you. And it's like, okay, anyone doing anything, don't worry about any competition if you think someone's just kind of plucked. And it happens all the time. People buy programs and they just pluck it and go, oh, so that, because it's like the most valuable thing I've ever heard. And I paid 10K for it. So, but they're selling an open wound. You know, they're not selling a scar. So I'd say with whoever you're looking for mentors, like make sure they've got a few scars across their face and they're selling those scars. Look for the conviction. So I wanted to ask, kind of like moving into like a final segment, I think it'd be interesting for people kind of get a bit of tactical here. I think, how are we ourselves? So business, $250,000 a month, doing very well.
More.
On track to do 300K more this month.
Yeah, for sure.
And really like $1 million a month that's on the horizon. So I think it's interesting. How are we going to grow this to $1 million a month? What conversation? It'd be interesting to maybe give an insight in like conversations we're having. And then also, how are we going to be impacting people through doing that? So how are we going to be bringing in the clients and actually getting them results? Like what are the conversations, like, because we've been having conversations this week, what have we got coming up with our kind of changes in the business? And again, it moves like a ship, right? Like we have ideas, but like, yes, we're quick to action, but things filter down. Like you steer the ship and then the back end moves. And, conversations we're having now, in a month's time, that's when like the thing is in and like implemented and like rolling. So I think it's interesting to be like, how are we scaling this to $1 million a year? How are we getting people like better results than anyone else is going to do in this space? And like, how are we fucking taking over?
You get more people through the door by getting better results for people, straight up, right? So, and also engineering what you do to get results, as in like the goal is to get the result. So we got to 200K a month by just helping people with their content. Like, you got to be clear on that, right? We're helping people on their content, and that's like helping people, very like abstract in the fucking fairy dust. Whereas like if you're just helping people make money, it's just a lot easier to tangibly be like, this is the Stripe account. Here's when you started working with us. Here is the difference. How does that sound? Right? Because then it's all the emotion involved with it, and it's also just a result with it, right? And then by virtue, there's a series of sub benefits, right? So you have more people coming in and getting that result. And then therefore, they're also creating a flywheel, whether it's like direct referrals or whatnot. It's just the spiral machine, right? And this is where, having like, let's say like a 5K offer like we do, people are able to come in, have a bargain, fucking bargain, right? Learn everything, and then be able to leave with an amazing experience. They'll either leave an amazing experience or they want to go work with us in more of like a higher ticket program, okay, and get even more results. So it's all about a James Kemp like analogy is like selling money at a discount, where someone gives you cash, you're giving them more cash back. And yes, there's a bunch of sub little kind of things around there, but that's one side because that's the result. But then there's also the skill, right? Because the big thing is like, yeah, you could probably like sell something and make 10K at some point, but if you don't have the skill, you can't do it over and over and over again. Brother, like you look at the metrics, I know exactly how much I'm going to make next month, like straight up. I could strip it down, start a new business, and probably get something up and running in like 30 days because I have this skill. I know how to build offers, I know how to create content, I know how to sell. So it's a very unique thing. And I think the breadth that we have is the fact that I used to be the content creator, creative 200, 300 podcasts, bro. And I know I can tell you that every single piece of content you put out doesn't make money. No one buys content, people buy offers. And I've seen that. So then I had to learn to create a really good offer. And by doing that, I then had to go solve the sales problem. And now the fact that we give that to people from the scars and the 1,000 sales calls allows us to be valuable. And then people want to come in and they're like, yeah, this is awesome. So there's that side of it, which is pure results, pure skill base. And then in terms of like actual like scaling it, it's like understanding what is the upside, like where actually is the goal, or where can we get to? And it's very clear. Like it's super, super clear, man, because when you have the velocity of sales coming through for your offer and the velocity of leads, you know that you can put them into their best position. The whole goal of different programs and different products is not to kick people through a funnel and then give them the $9 thing and then the $39 thing. It's actually something completely different. It's to position people in the best place. I'll often have a call with someone. They say, well, should I go into Apex or the incubator? And like Apex is more money, but it's also a bigger commitment for them. They should just go into the incubator and get started. Done. And then they'll trust you more, back you more, have more respect for you, and then take the next step, right? And I think a lot of guys will break their business or just pretend that it's not working or whatnot versus like working on these big core levers. And that just creates so much velocity through the business. And that's the biggest thing, right? And then in terms of, I feel like, looking at the laws of like leverage, like so I'm like a content bro true and true, but content can only get you so far. There's only so many LinkedIn posts you can put out a week. There's only so many IG reels you can put out. So I think like the big unlock is, well, give it a kind of context. 0 to 100K a month for us was based off a really good offer. We're getting people really good results. We were running their show, running their back end, running everything. That was 0 to 100K. 100K to 200K was having a suite of offers, otherwise known as an ecosystem. So we had making 200K a month, being able to show people that, look, you can go here, you can also go here, you can also go here, pick your poison, it doesn't matter, whichever one suits you the best, okay? 200K to 250K is you need a sales team that operates at an extremely high level. They're all in it, 24/7, all in tight. That sales team has an exponent because they just get better. It's the thing. As long as they're not a princess, they're not going to leave. So they're just going to get better. Intuitively, they will make more money as time evolves because their skill will get better. Acquisition of skill improves. So now you have a stronghold of your sales team. You have a stronghold of the data in the company. You can tell for the most part how much money you're going to make because of how much calls you're booking, based on how much people show up, based on how much people you close. And then this is the beautiful part, is that then you have a very strong hold of your business. Because at that point, then you can truly start putting it on steroids with something like paid ads. Because you know how much money is going to come out of the machine. Like, I literally joke that we've literally created a money printing machine because we know statistically how much people will show up and how much money they will pay. Statistically, like, it's on a piece of paper. So knowing that means that I can just throw more fuel on the fire and just pour more money into ads, make better content, do a podcast tour that will cost a lot of money, but knowing that the lead flow that will come through will go into these areas. And because I come from like a software background, and because I have had the agency for so long, fulfillment has always been my jam, because I've always been like, how much people can we service at the level that we're at? And it's a very interesting thing to look at, because to get to $1 million a month, and we're 35% there, you just need to look at it economically, because it's not about how much money do you spend on ads or how much money do you spend on sales commission, which is so funny to even look at. It's the percentage. It's percentage, bro. It's a game of percentages. So I know that if for every dollar I spend, I make back 3. Okay, so it cost me $1 to get a. So let's just give an example. So the logic here, the example I'm trying to give here is like your LTV of a customer to how much it costs to acquire a customer, which is your CAC. So if I know that if I spend $1,000 to get a customer through sales reps commission and ads, and if they're going to pay me at least 3,000, I know that in theory I have a money making machine. And the irony of this whole situation is that our LTV to CAC is like 8 to 1 or like 11 to 1. This is the big kind of crazy thing, is that we are at a huge imbalance in the green, like a monumental, to the point that, being fully transparent, I could probably sell the business right now for a couple of million, because I can show up to a private equity store, give him a spreadsheet that no one else could probably give him. I could show him every single data. I could show him every single employee of what they do and how effective they are, and someone wrote about it.
Yeah.
And bro, we have people that knock on our door to be customers that don't even know me. So it's not like, oh, single person risk and all this, bro. Nobody, like, even we get on the calls, bro, and like, people don't come to my calls because they come to the other calls, And this is the whole thing about organization versus a bro business, right? And I have such a strong hold of the data that now I can just go ramp up. I see the payments come out, and as I said earlier, just to wrap up this point, I spent like $70K this week, and I'm like, well, I'll tell you a funny story. So I was planning out like a podcast tour, and it's like a podcast travel tour, getting like amazing guests and so on, and like it was really extreme because I'm like an extreme person. And Elise was like, my wife was like, how much is it going to cost? And I was like, I don't know, like $50K. And then she was like, what the fuck? And then I was like, she said, like, that's a lot because the previous tours have cost like 10 or 8 or, maybe like 15. She's like, you're going to spend like $50,000 to interview people. And I was like, yeah. And then she's like, how do you know it's going to work? And then I just goes, that's how I look at my bank account. And I open up my bank account and I just scrolled through the transactions, and it was like 15K, 10K, 24K, 9K, 3K. And then she was like, when have all these been from? And I was like, I don't know, this week. And then I just said, statistically, I know that I can make money, like mathematically, like it's an equation.
Yeah.
And I know that if I spend a lot on a big tour, that I know that either directly or indirectly, maybe I need to make the money back, maybe it fails, and I need to make the money back. I know mathematically I can make it up, right? So statistically, I know that will actually pay me back. But if that was, let's say the cameras exploded and the plane crashed and I died, I know I didn't die, I swear, but I know mathematically I can make it back based on the numbers.
Yeah.
And I think that's like the big thing, right? Because I'm working with a lot of entrepreneurs. I'm working with some guys who are doing 2 million a year, and they're frantic. And the reason why they're frantic is they don't have a good hold of their business. They can't look at them. They don't have the numbers. And they're actually not willing to put the numbers together. And this is the funny thing, is because if you have a look at the numbers, you'll be able to firstly give you peace of mind, because you're like, whoa, I did something. And then secondly, you'll be like, and that's in the red. let's fix it. And it's ironic because it's not like this big thing you need to fix, and I'll give you just a simple example. I had a call with one of our clients this morning, and the individual was not getting sales calls, but making good money from like retainer clients. And I just said, well, we just need more sales calls. And then she said, how would you do that? And I just said, I would ask people to get on a call. I was like, how many times did you do that? And then we looked at the data, and and her sales reps were not asking people for calls. And I was like, well, maybe if you could ask them for a call, they would just get on the phone and you could sell that to them. And it was just this very obvious thing that I tried to keep things like super, super simple, And it's like right now we help business owners make money. And it's like 4 words. And I wish it was 2 words, because the simpler the better, And it was just like, that's a very obvious thing to like point at. And this individual was quite stressed and pretty overwhelmed. And I was like, well, if we just got more people on calls, then that'll fix the lead problem. And then we had another look at like how much they were closing, and they were closing very little. It was very, 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 very little. And then we looked at, okay, well, maybe if you don't say the stuff that you said on the last calls, and you said the stuff that I'm recommending you to say, they'll actually turn to customers. And then they're like, well, how do you know that? And it's like, because we make $250,000 a month. How much do you make a month? It's just like, that's the mathematical equation. It's like, we know how to run sales teams. So if you just listen to us, statistically, it's going to work. And just to finish up this point, I remember I had a client that was in our program, and like some people are just not coachable, and that's a massive red flag. And if you are someone who's not coachable, it's a huge red flag to have, because people want to be right versus people wanting to solve problems. So people will come to us with their problems, and this individual is probably making like $7,000 a month, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's respectable, and if you are doing that, it's great. But they would come and he would give the scenario of what he was doing. I'm doing this campaign and I'm getting people on calls and so on and so forth. And here's some sales calls going. And then he would say these things, not ask, but say these things. And then I would say, well, I wouldn't do it like that. I would do it like this. And he's like, why would you do it like that? And I was like, because it works for me. It's working. Yeah. And then he'd be like, no, I'm going to do this way. And I'm like, but you make $7,000 a month and we make $250,000 a month. So maybe you should listen to the person that you're paying. And then lo and behold, the client's not with us anymore.
Do you want to be right or do you want to make money?
Exactly. And it's very simple, and I think a lot of the times, and change is tough, right? Like inherently change is tough. But whenever I suggest something to someone, and I can be quite brutal, which is the whole reason why you're there, is because I try to be simple and brutal, because that's what life is, it's just simple, right? And if someone is like, if I'm like, you got to do X, Y, Z for your business, and they're like, well, I'm doing it this way, and I've put 4 months into this way, so why would I do it that way? And I would just look at them and say, to make money, to make more money. Like, that's why we're here, right? Like, you can fucking journal and read and like candles all you want. But I mean, in your business is designed to make money, dude. It's not designed to be this soulful thing. So if I'm telling you to change your VSL, I'm not doing it just so that you have something to do for next week. I'm doing it so that you can make more money.
I think this has been one of our strengths as well. And you spoke to it earlier. And the reason, like, you have the background with the software, like fulfillment is it's the most important thing you're thinking about. And then with my background in education, I was also head of education at one of the largest music companies in the UK. That combination of, and this is funny, right? So when I show people like our funnel, and I don't like to call it a funnel, again, ecosystem, but more, I like to call it, this is how we build relationships with people. This is how we use content to build relationships with people. This is how we show, and then on the side of our funnel, I show how the relationship is deepening over time and the types of beliefs that will be changing. And which is, because that's what it is. That's what we're doing. We're building relationships. The first question, how do we build a relationship with 10,000 people? Is like through content. That's what we're doing. But it's very, and again, we're very big. We're not going to tell you how to do it, but we're very big on the connective tissue between our content. That's why it works so well for others as well, because we're very clear on that connective tissue. Anyway, when I show people that funnel, most funnels that people have seen, they see this big open thing at the top and then like it narrows down. And then people are like, that's our funnel. If you look at our funnel, the bottom of our funnel is wider than the top. And that's fulfillment, because we understand that the foundations you build your business on. You can be the 200K a month scale bro. You did it once and then that's your whole thing forever. Like you did the little monkey trick and danced in a way that you managed to get that amount of revenue. You've got the Stripe screenshot and now you're living off that. Okay, good for you. However, like, and I always say this to people, I've been in Bali, you've been in Bali a lot longer than me. I've been in Bali a while now. I met a bunch of people when I first came here, like Billy Big Bollocks, hey, I'm making 100K, 200K a month. I haven't fucking seen them in years. However, the people who didn't fucking necessarily lead with the numbers, or they're like, yeah, that I've seen them every 3 times a week for the last 2.5 years. I'm like, you've got some solid foundations for whatever it is you're doing. I actually would much rather take your advice than the monkey who learned how to like sing and dance and twist themselves and say certain things to like get people to send them money. It's like, that's who's interesting to me. And like it's always a good indicator of like the level of entrepreneur you're speaking to when someone like comes straight in with numbers like, oh, how much you doing, like this, no bullshit, how much you doing. I'm like, you're asking the wrong question. Like, it's
what problem are you solving?
What problem are you solving? How long have you been solving that problem? What results have you? And then like it's an instant red flag. I know if like I'm in a sauna and someone's like, hey, what's your monthly revenue? One, fuck off, who are you? And like, two, like you're asking the wrong question. You're still in that like flashy Rolex, like look how big my dick is phase. And you're so, yeah, but you get it here. But it shows the kind of level of entrepreneur you're kind of dealing with the questions you ask initially. And I'd much prefer to speak to the quieter people who I'm like, if I've seen someone every other day for the last 3 years and like I've seen them consistently here doing their thing, living a nice lifestyle, maybe they're worth a conversation. Hey, you've clearly built something with foundations. And I think getting back to like the point there is the reason that we can pour this fuel on the fire in the form of paid ads, in the form of like the podcast tour, is because we have the foundations. One, we know like our capacity. We also know how to teach people in a way that gets them results and gets them to be kind of self-motivating to actually take those results. A big part of our business is, funnily enough, for an education business, obviously we have the agency, but for the education business, funnily enough, a really important part of that is education and like how we educate people. And it's like, that's why I feel like this is, I like our backgrounds because we both have our own kind of paths into the online. We weren't always online fucking info cowboys.
Abraham said it to me. He was like, you don't realize how like your business acumen just from like other businesses just help you in the space.
So important.
And even like things like this, you'll find it's quite interesting. So, and I learned this from Eman, but I kind of forgot about it, to be honest. It was like, you always need to be investing the money that you're making, and I kind of wasn't doing that kind of out of fear because I was like, oh fuck, like, maybe it's not going to work out like when like 4 years ago. But then I kind of had realized that I'm not a potato. So then I was kind of thinking like, okay, this needs to be, I need to set myself up here. Like I need to figure out a way to like invest and figure out what's going to happen next, and just like how like the business is going to develop, and like where does the money go, and like what does inflation do, and like how does that fix the P&L. It's like higher level thinking, it's like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do with it? You're going to build a fucking school in Africa? Like, what is he going to do with this? And then it's because, and I learned this from working with Eman, that, he's talking about private banks. I had the pleasure of having lunch with James Blackwell, which was humbling to say the least. In the first conversation, I was like, oh, like, what are you working on? He was like, well, I'm actually building a private equity firm. I was like, to do what? And he was like, like large, like manufacturing plants in Scandinavia. And I was like, no, dude, I don't know this. So it's laws. And that's why, like, when someone's like, what's your MRR? I'd probably kick that guy in the head. But at the same time, you need to go through that to get to the next level, And then I was even like looking at being like, okay, well, it was actually quite interesting. My business account has like a default savings account, which I didn't even realize was there. And it was like 3%, which obviously isn't better than inflation. But I was like, okay, if I have 3% one day on 10 million cash, well, that's like, how much is that? That's like 30K a year. That's someone's salary for doing nothing, for leaving the money parked. But then if it was in like a fund, it was making 8% a year. Okay, well, that's 80K. That's a good person's salary. Do you get me? It's like power laws, right? And then that's where like, yeah, it's just interesting what you do with that as you go on, and like then eventually build a farm and
build the farm.
You build a country.
Farms incoming. That's part of the plan. We won't tell you about those plans yet, but the farms incoming. Bro, this has been awesome. I think we should go and make some money. I think that's what's on the agenda for the rest of the day. But yeah, bro, this is awesome. Like, fucking check out what we're doing. It's fucking sick. Like, obviously go over watch Darren's podcasts because they're just awesome. He got me into this. This is our 4th one we've done together now. fourth of many that will keep coming. And yeah, having lots of fun doing this. Like it's playing the
Smashing, brother.
infinite games, right? Like we don't want to stop. This is just fun.
It was always the stuff that we had not talked about, we never talked about stuff, but it's all stuff that we were saying from like podcast 1, like the values, the attributes, the characteristics. And like I can thankfully say that like you never ever faulted on anything that you had said, and hopefully vice versa.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like that, like that's the big thing, is that everyone in this space are fucking cowboys, right? It's all smokes and mirrors. Whereas if you say you are the empathetic teacher, you got to be that. If you are someone who says you got to shoot glass, you got to be that, right? And you wrote about that recently, about, you know, kind of becoming a prison to the false identity you make, the non-authentic identity do you make, becoming a prisoner to it.
Yeah.
And I do not feel like that, bro.
Yeah.
Just who I am, you know.
Yeah, the clip is it went viral on text, and then I tried to do it as like a spoken thing, and it didn't go as viral. So, but
really?
yeah, it's like anything you gain while being inauthentic, you must maintain being inauthentic to maintain
for
it.
sure.
Yeah. So,
and also identify who you are, right? Do you get me? Like, I just will not sit on the beach. I'm just not that kind of type of person, you know. I fucking love the weather, so I live in Asia.
One of my favorite stories about Darren is he was like thinking about learning surfing, did a few lessons, and then he had like epiphany halfway through a surfing lesson. He's like, what the fuck am I doing? I'm trying to build a business. She just rode in, dropped off the board, and was like, well, fuck it, I'm gonna go make some money.
It was like 1 o'clock in the day, and I just threw the board away, and I was like, fuck this. And the guy was like, you want a beer, bro? I'm like, fuck off.
Yeah. Scale time, man. Fucking love it, bro. You're a legend. Here's to many more. That was a lot of fun.
That was a lot of fun, bro.
Fuck yeah, man. That's good.